We're making potato soup because it's crappy outside. And nothing's better on a icky day than soup. How much butter did you put in there?
I usually put about 6 tablespoons. I used to put a whole 8 in there.
Cool.
But that's a little too much butter sometimes.
Okay, so you take
4 to 6.
4 to 6 tablespoons. It's up to you how much you want. And then you're going to cut 2 onions. Is that right?
I like to use 2 because I like onions, but you can use 1 if you don't like onions.
Onions are yummy. Get all the gross bits off.
Instead of like working at that skin, I usually just take the whole first layer off. It makes it easier to get that skin
I do
off.
the same thing whenever I cut onions because they're hard little bastards to cut.
Got one more.
That's actually cut pretty damn well. I usually still have that weird underlayer. Okay.
Use a sharp knife for this, so we'll get through that outer skin much easier.
Yeah, I think this will work because then if I want to make potato soup for myself, I'll be able to because I can look back on this video.
Mm-hmm. That one had a thick outer layer.
Mm-hmm.
Now I do like to wipe off these onions because they get a little slippery.
Mm-hmm.
And
Do you still rinse them after you take off all the outer casing?
yeah, I just did.
Oh.
I just rinsed them real
I
quickly.
honestly didn't pay attention.
I just run a little water on them. I mean, all this stuff, you're cooking it as long as you're not, and there's no raw meat in this anyways, as long as you're not like combining raw meat with ready-to-eat foods, you'll be fine.
Okay. Mmm, yummy. I can't see what you're doing. Yeah, there we go.
That's why I turned on all the lights. Light in here isn't very good. Now, you don't have to get all these onions the exact same size.
But just chop them up pretty good.
Yeah, the finer you chop them, the more flavor you'll get.
That makes sense.
Just go at it slowly so you don't cut yourself. I have yet to cut myself with this knife.
Don't jinx it.
I have cut myself with dull knives.
Those have to be worse than the sharp knives, though.
Yeah, they are. I've cut myself with a steak knife, and that hurts a lot.
Yeah.
Because it gets in there and it cuts all those nerves. Sometimes, like, for instance, if your onion's really tall, it's good just to take a few layers off and cut it this way.
Yeah.
So it's a little safer to cut.
Oh, sorry.
You're fine.
I noticed I don't have a very steady hand. I was holding it with one hand, and the camera was like shake, 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 and I'm like, ah!
Actually, before I put this first onion in there, I'm going to melt this butter.
Mm-hmm.
I usually start the butter pretty high, but once it starts to melt, you're going to want to turn it down because you don't want to burn your butter.
Oh, my camera's being a butt. Hold on. Oh, there we go.
It's fine to like cook your butter to like clarify it to make it clear, but you don't want to cook butter on high like some oils.
Because it'll burn.
Yeah, you'll just
I've done
burn
that
it.
one too many times, let me tell you.
You can brown your butter.
How can you tell the difference between burning and browning?
Browning, you get that very slight tan-ish color to your butter, usually on a lower temperature.
Mm-hmm.
See, now I would turn it down because you hear it start to hiss
Sizzle.
and
Hiss.
sizzle. You don't want it to sizzle. But yeah, you would just take your butter and cook it on a medium low temperature.
Here, I can actually do that part.
Cook it on a medium low temperature and until it turns that sort of almost brown color, not a very dark brown, like a light brown.
I'm multitasking. Oh, that's a lot of butter.
Mm-hmm.
But
as I said, I don't. Well, see, here's the thing with this dish: is you're adding flour to that butter to thicken up the cream.
Did you check to see if we had butter? Or I mean, check to see if we had flour?
Yeah, we got plenty.
Yay, flour!
We have that one bag we've had forever.
Yeah.
Probably should toss that. And we have.
Do you want to see how much of it we can use now and then toss it?
We're not going to be able to use all of it.
Well, I'd rather not waste if we can help it. But you're right, it has been in there for a while.
Now, if you use cornstarch instead of butter, you can use cornstarch instead of butter, flour. Sorry, with this. But the rule of thumb with cornstarch is cornstarch thickens.
Almost there.
I'm gonna turn that down a little bit as it gets liquidy.
And there you go, melted butter.
Cornstarch tends to thicken about twice as much. It's twice as strong as flour, so you want to add half as much cornstarch as you do flour. It also dissolves in there a lot better than flour does. You never want to add any of your thickening agents straight to the milk when it comes to flour and cornstarch especially, because they'll clump. That's why there's that extra butter in there, so that the thickening agents can mix up with the grease, and then they're easier, they mix into the liquid better.
That looks like so much onions.
I mean, this dish really doesn't have any other veggies in it besides onions and potatoes and some garlic. So I like to add a lot of onions.
I definitely appreciate you teaching me how to make this.
Now,
because
you can always add more veggies, different veggies, but it's going to alter the flavor, especially if you use carrots, and not quite as much, but also if you use broccoli.
Yeah, I definitely don't want to go with the broccoli, but I definitely like the idea of getting some shredded carrots.
Carrots alter the flavor a lot, though. Carrots are very strong.
Well, you don't need a lot of them, just a little bit. Because I might be wrong, but I think German-style potato soup has that. Like, just a pinch of it. And do I want to get these all...
Just leave that where it is.
Oh, okay.
Because
I'm jumping the gun.
Low enough temperature, I don't... That stove's not clean.
Okay. I just don't nitpick like you.
Well, since this is the spatula we're putting into our cooked food, you don't want it to have any cross-contamination.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, what I will usually do is I will just get some paper towels and fold them up and put
For a second. Can y'all hear it cooking? It's got like... Oh. Okay.
Someone ran through a stop sign when the other way had the right of way.
Oh, you can actually see the butter sizzling underneath the onions right there. Check that out.
Well, maybe putting paper towels on the stove isn't the best idea.
No. But putting it over there will be alright. Oh, this is going to be so good. I love potato soup. My grandma used to make it for us all the time when I was a little girl.
Now, if anyone out there doesn't like garlic, you shouldn't be cooking.
Really?
Just saying.
What if they're allergic?
That's different.
You can't fault them for their issues. Now, we love garlic, so you can add or subtract however much of that you want.
Garlic,
but it will give it a lot of flavor.
Garlic is one of those magical ingredients. It's good for you, and it adds a ton of flavor.
Now, I read somewhere that garlic actually helps you when you're sick. Now, it doesn't make you better, but it's supposed to boost your immune system, and it helps a little bit.
The only thing that can make you better when you're sick is your immune system. But your immune system needs support in the form of nutrition. Mm-hmm. And
I need to learn to eat better, so this is a good step. I know potatoes aren't the best thing, but I don't...
have a lot of raw energy in them, though.
Yeah, I don't make a lot of healthy meals, unfortunately. So I need to get around to doing that. Now, something that I asked for him to add are these delicious Smithfield diced ham bits. My mom used to add these when her and I were living together in Virginia. She's like, oh, I want to make Grandma's potato soup. And we're like, let's do something crazy and put some meat in it. And we put these diced ham bits in it, and my God, it was delicious.
Now, I have also added bacon, but the trick to that is to cut, well, depends on which way you want to do it, but regardless of whether you do it before or after you cook the bacon, make sure you cut off the fat, because it makes it very chewy in this dish if you don't. Gonna turn this
I
up
think
a
I
little
prefer
bit.
the diced ham. It's one step less. You don't have to cook it. It's already pre-cooked. And it does add a pretty good flavor.
I do like to saute this up real good and cook down the onions and get this ham a little crispy. Come on, onion. There we go. Now, while we're doing that, I'm going to go ahead and wash and start chopping some of our potatoes.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you can add as many potatoes as you want. It is potato soup after all.
Mm-hmm.
But for 3 people, I think...
About 5 or 6 or 7 if they're tiny.
Now, it depends on what potatoes you want to use.
I like to use reds. But you can use russets.
Russets are actually the better potato to use if you're going to be cooking.
And
the easiest to
tell
cook.
us why, oh guru of the potato.
They're very easy to take a flavor, and
Potatoes. Now, you see, I like reds because they have this flavor to them that's very gentle. Now, russets are great, but like he said, you have to really flavor them to get a good flavor to come out of them. If you eat them plain, they just don't taste like anything. These ones have a little bit of a flavor, and they're softer than russets, and I find it much easier to cut them.
once they're cooked, it doesn't really matter though.
That's a good point.
Russets do have that extra starch, which adds it adds body to the meal.
Mm-hmm. And because I'm a weirdo, I don't ever take the skin off of my potato. That's where all the nutrients are.
There's no point in taking the skin off potatoes.
Well, I will say one thing about that. It does get stuck in your teeth.
Now,
occasionally.
I don't use the butts for this dish.
Oh, you mean like the part where they took it off the vine?
Yeah, I don't use that round bit.
Okay.
First of all, it gets dirty up in there, and it's also got extra skin on it, so it's harder to chew it.
I wish we had smell-o-vision so I could do this and you could just smell it. It smells really good. And you with how much garlic you put in there, it's just like pow.
Now, part of the reason I added the extra butter is because of the extra onions.
Yeah.
But, that is a little more liquid in there than I would normally like.
Yeah, I guess you would like it a little less liquid. Because it already looks like it's almost at soup level.
That's hard to avoid, though, because everything we add has moisture to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he cuts a little differently than me. I think his way is a little bit more efficient. I'll take the potato, I'll cut it in half, and then I cut those pieces in half, and I'm like, okay, done. But then it takes longer for the potato to cook through.
Yeah, we cook the potatoes in with this soup. We simmer this soup for about 30 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And that cooks the potatoes. Now, the longer you simmer almost any soup, at least the ones I make, the more flavor you get out of it. So you could simmer this for hours if you pleased.
The longer you cook, the better the flavor. Well, maybe the thicker the soup, perhaps?
Well, you do boil off some of that water, which makes it bland. So you do get more concentrated flavor. Now, I may or may not add more potatoes.
I think how many you have should be enough. We don't want too many leftovers between the three of us. But for right now, while he cuts these potatoes, I'm going to go ahead and stop because my phone is like, hello, it's been 15 minutes. I think you're running out of space. But when we get to the next part, I will start back up. So we've been cooking these for a little while. You want to cook them for about 10-15 minutes, stirring occasionally because you don't want those onions to burn. And then we have our, our potatoes. And I decided it's a special enough occasion. Here, let me see the bottle. To get me one of my favorite drinks open. It's called ice wine. For anyone who's never heard of that, because most of the time when I bring this up, a lot of people don't know what the hell ice wine is. Basically what they do is they will allow the grapes on the vine to freeze, and that causes them to basically turn to sugar. And then they'll take them off. They'll look like little raisins. And so this ends up being a super sweet dessert wine. I made the mistake of deciding one time that it's such a small bottle, as you can see. Like, it looks like it's the size, a little bit bigger than a beer bottle. I decided one time I was going to drink it all by myself. That was a mistake. Do not drink this by yourself. Or if you do, don't chug it like I did.
Should never chug sweet alcohol.
Nope.
It's vomit fuel.
Yeah, basically, I was sitting in the chair after I finished, and one of my friends was cooking on my grill, and he was like, "Are you all right?" I'm like, "I don't know." It literally felt like the world was on the verge of spinning. So, just a heads up, do not chug this. All right. I talked about smell-o-vision. Too bad there isn't taste-o-vision as well. See, it's got this really nice color to it. Oh, you see, I already made the mistake. You see, there's so little of it. I accidentally put too much in one of them. Let's try and make that equal, shall we? How's that look?
That's really a whole bottle, isn't it?
Yeah, that is a whole bottle right there, folks. I'll let you pick which one you want since you're the cook today. Yep, figured that was the one you wanted. It's got a little more in it. Ah.
It's like drinking grape syrup and alcohol.
Ooh, yeah. Very similar to the syrupiness of peach schnapps, but peach schnapps is still a little thicker. The flavor, if it's a little too strong when you first sip it, let it breathe for about 10 minutes and it'll be fine.
So when we get to this step here where everything's starting to brown, crisping up a little bit, you can get it a little more crispy if you want, but we're basically going to turn off the heat. Going to grab our flour.
It looks good.
Now,
and are we doing the pinch deal here, or are you just going to toss it in?
I don't measure with measuring cups or spoons, at least not for dishes I've made before. Basically,
just get you a nice handful.
You want about 2 tablespoons. I'm going to add just a little bit more.
Just to be safe.
If you make it a little thick at first, that's fine. You would rather, it's easier to thin it out than to make it thicker. Because it will just get all lumpy if you have to add it to the actual liquid. When you're adding flour to the reason why I'm putting it in here with the grease,
it's going to soak up that grease.
It's going to soak up that grease, and it's going to mix into the water, to the cream easier.
And we're using both heavy cream and milk, but you can use water instead of milk, but you do need the heavy cream.
I would
right?
not use water because you get more flavor and creaminess, but yes, you do need...
Yeah, you can use water in a tight pinch, but milk is preferred.
You do need either a pint of heavy cream, or you can substitute this for a pint and a half if you don't want it to be as thick.
Yeah. Now me, I'm a glutton for punishment. I wanted the heavy whipping cream.
Yeah, get heavy. If you don't want heavy cream, just get half and half. Don't get that light whipping cream. That's just a ripoff.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm going to save this.
I mean, if you're getting cream, you might as well go all the way. You know what I'm saying? It's all just as bad. Like previously stated, I wanted to start making healthier meals. This isn't the most healthiest because of all the cream, but it's nice during the wintertime when you want something that'll stick to your ribs.
Yeah, we're doing this as sort of an end of summer dish.
Yeah, mostly because it was raining, and I'm like, you know what? I'm in the mood for some potato soup tonight.
Now, see how we don't really have a lot of liquid in here? This is where the milk comes in.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is
Now,
going to be...
do you want it to just top off right at the top of the potatoes?
When you're doing this many potatoes, now I actually put 7 potatoes in here because they were smaller. But when you're doing this many potatoes, I don't know what size pan this is, but you want to put it right about...
This is your basic sized boiling pot that you can find in most
grocery stores.
Grocery stores. It's the one that you would boil your noodles in or whatever. You don't have to have a huge container, but if you have a bigger family, you may want to get a bigger pan. As you can see, he's using the container to measure out the milk. Do they fill it all the way up?
I usually fill it 3/4 of the way, so I have room... Oops, wrong cap. So I have room to shake it so I can get all that rest of that heavy cream out.
Yep, gotta save whatever you can.
Now... Oh, you know what? Can you check up there and see if we have any chicken broth? I forgot about that.
Chicken broth?
Actually, we don't, but I have a good substitution.
Yeah, so usually you use chicken broth, which turns out pretty nice. It looks like we just have the bouillon cube bullshit.
Usually you want to use one of those, like, 2-cup containers.
The tall paper containers of chicken broth. If I remember, Swanson's is really, really good.
So what you would do, instead of putting that milk in here like I would, you would put that chicken broth in here first, and then you would add milk if you still had room or wanted more broth.
Yeah, so broth first. If you need more, add the milk.
Now, this particular batch of potato soup may be a little more liquidy than usual, but that is because it is still really hot outside, and the last thing I want to do is eat a really thick soup.
So what you're saying is depending on how much flour they put in is how thick thick it's going to be. So those 2 tablespoons are if you want a more soupy potato soup, but if you want a nice chunky, creamy, thick potato soup, you got to add a little bit more of the flour.
You can add as much flour as you please. Just be aware that you don't want to put in all that liquid right at first, because you're either going to make it too thin, or you're going to find out really quickly that it's too thick, and then you're going to want to add more liquid to just where it's perfect.
Yeah, and that's looking pretty good.
It still hasn't. The flour doesn't really.
But I can see what you mean, that it's a little liquidy.
The flour doesn't thicken up the soup until it's boiling.
Okay.
Once it gets to boiling, and you are going to want to stir this until it gets up there, because
be careful. Cream and milk will burn.
Cream and milk will burn, and the flour will stick to the bottom.
Yeah. So when you're doing that, you see what he's doing. He's going all the way to the bottom and trying to push everything on the bottom so nothing sticks.
And when you're letting the soup simmer, you have to do the same thing every 10 minutes. You got to come in and you got to scrape the bottom, because this is a very starchy, very creamy dish, and it will stick like that.
Yeah, I do the same thing with my pasta noodles, because I have had incidents where they've stuck to the bottom and they were done for.
1 teaspoon into 1 cup.
Oh, they're not
So,
even the cubes. It's the powder.
I do not actually like this by itself.
I don't either.
Now,
I'm more of a beef flavored bouillon cubes. I don't remember who bought that. Was that you?
yes,
Okay.
when I couldn't eat any solids.
Oh yeah, I remember that. He was sick as a dog, and he had to go in for some doctor's appointment, and they were like, "Now don't eat anything," and he's like,
Oop.
"But." So
Okay,
he got
so-
stuck on soup and gelatin for a little while.
I don't know exactly how much I needed for this because it's supposed to be a teaspoon per cup, and I don't measure.
You know, I'm sure that'll be all right. If not, we learned something today, which is use your measuring cups.
Now, because this is bouillon and because it has a lot of extra salt in it, I'm going to wait till this dish is almost complete to add any more salt.
Yeah, I would do that because you are right. It's got a lot of salt in it. And
Most chicken broth I buy doesn't have salt.
mm-hmm.
Never buy the fat-free stuff. Even though you're putting butter in this, don't buy fat-free broth.
Is there a reason?
First of all, most chicken broth's already mostly fat-free because it's broth.
Mm-hmm.
And second of all, you're just sapping your flavor out of it.
Yeah.
You can buy low-sodium broth if you want. I find it's not really that big of a deal.
It's usually not too much. But the powder stuff's going to have a lot of
Yes.
sodium. So heads up.
However, I do want my pepper. I like to use fine ground black pepper. If you like the coarse stuff,
Go
use
for it. Yeah. You can basically use whatever flavorings you want, but traditionally it's like salt, pepper, garlic, onion. Ooh, that is a lot of black pepper.
Potatoes eat it right
Yep,
up.
the potatoes will nom it, but every time I see it, I'm like, oh god, all that black pepper.
Don't
Sad face.
when you're cooking potato dishes, especially don't skimp on the pepper. You don't have to, you can put a little less salt, but never skimp on the pepper. You will be very disappointed.
Yeah, it won't have any flavor.
Unless you're used to not eating with flavoring.
I actually had to work myself up to it. Because my grandma she's a little bit more plain on how she cooks. But that's how I grew up. So when I started having all these meals that had all this flavor to it, I was like, whoa, that's too much. But now I'm getting to the point where I'm kind of starting to like them.
So I'm going to see how thick this gets, because it isn't a whole ton of broth. But if it's too liquidy, I'm not going to add any more liquid.
So what do we have left to put in there? Just the cheese?
Just the cheese, but I'm going to wait till it gets boiling first.
Yeah. And we'll get to that in just a few moments, folks.
Alright.
Okay, so we've been churning it. And you see it's gotten a little thicker.
It's starting to boil, too.
Mm-hmm.
This is the perfect thickness for this time of
Can
year.
I see?
Yep.
So, let me see. Yeah, see, it's not completely thick, but you can see that it's thickened just a little bit. That looks really good.
Now, I add cheese to this. It adds a lot of flavor. I liked to use it's either the Mexican or the nacho cheese blend from Kroger. It's the one that doesn't have the spices. Just because it has really good melting cheese in there.
Mm-hmm. So we're going to try this one and see how it goes?
Well, I was going to use their casserole blend, even though it doesn't have cheddar, but they discontinued their casserole.
Oh, that sucks.
Well, they either discontinued the casserole or the pizza. I don't remember. They have discontinued the one that I really liked to use. And it's just 8 ounces of cheese.
And
Don't
you
put
just
all
pour
that.
that shit in there. Yeah.
Yeah, if you can find a blend that has cheddar in it, it will work really well.
Oh, yeah.
I'm just trying this one this time.
I'm going to admit that I have a problem, folks. I love cheese. And when I say I love cheese, you could put cheese on fucking everything, and I would tear that shit up. Excuse my language. He just gave me a funny look, and I'm
Good
like...
thing you're not
huh.
trying to get this video monetized.
I really don't care about that too much.
Well, I mean, you just automatically got rid of your monetization by saying the F word.
Oops, I might have to blurp that out later.
Nah, you're fine.
My thing is like, it would be cool to be monetized, but I don't think I'm creative enough to, like, keep it going like some of these other people, like Markiplier.
You don't have the time to.
Yeah, I've got too much shit going on. Is the F word the only one that they really get upset about?
There's a lot of things they get upset about at YouTube.
Yeah, that's true. That's where all the special
guns.
That's where all the special snowflakes go to get dealied and upset on purpose.
If any of y'all out there openly flag videos just because of the theme, and it's not something that's...
You suck.
Yeah. Don't go around flagging gun videos just because you're anti-gun, okay?
Well, I mean, like, look at me. I'm not into guns myself, but at the same time, I understand where these people are coming from. So, as long as they're not hurting anybody, let them do them.
What happens is you'll have videos that get flagged and it's just someone at the range shooting safely on a gun range. And they'll flag it because it's related to guns. I'm not trying to spread a political message. I'm just saying censorship.
I'm just kidding.
Censorship is not a good thing. Not for something that is constitutionally guaranteed as a citizen of the United States of America.
All right, no more mumbo jumbo. You can do your own gun video on your own time. What? Cranky, cranky, cranky. I will admit, he's got a couple of guns, and I like his Mosin Nagant. It's really old, and I like old stuff like that. I guess you could call me an antiquer because I like old shit. But yeah, you get the cheese in there pretty good, get it mixed up, and then you reduce the heat. You put the top on and you let it simmer for, what's the magic number?
We're going to try 15.
15, and we're going to see how that turns out. In the meantime, I'm going to finish up my ice wine. I've been over here destroying it. Alright, it's all finished. It took about 30 minutes. You have to cook until the potatoes are completely done. I assume you used a fork.
Nah, I just tasted them because they were too small.
He just grabbed one and tasted one to see if it was all the way cooked through. You can use a fork as well if you have larger pieces. And now comes the moment of truth where we feed ourselves. It smells good, though. Mmm. Yummy. Alright, guys. I'm going to let you go because this chick's hungry. Y'all have a great day, and feel free to ask any questions and whatnots, and I'll talk to you next time I have a video up.